I wanted to, I had some thoughts about how people would misconstrue what I'm trying to enlighten, what I'm trying to shed some light on. And I think a lot of people don't understand that what sovereignty is, and being governed and living a lawful life is not the same thing. I'm not talking about no government. I'm talking about having a lawful government that is restricted by the law and must respect individual sovereignty. That was really what our country was about. So when I say through the consent of the governed, that means a government that cannot impose its rules, its statutes and acts upon you without your consent. That does not mean there is no law or that you are above the law. It means it simply is bound to law and respects the law. Technically, our government in America now does not respect the law. And its statutes and acts, they claim, supersede the law, which is why we have so much conflict. Because anytime you go against the law, which is ultimately the design of the world, you will manifest and animate conflict, inequity, which will create conflict, which creates destruction, which is why any house built upon inequity, or it starts to step into inequity, will eventually fall, because it goes against the law, and the law is ultimately the design of the world. You cannot escape it. You have to understand that ultimately, like if a good, let's see, like prohibition. You cannot have prohibition with a lawful government, because it goes against the law. What is the law? The law is the design of the world. It is it is simply the observation of the creation and the rights upon if you want to understand the will of God, simply look at God's creations, and you will start to understand God's mind, and you will start to see what God intended. God gave me ownership of myself. God gave you ownership of yourself. God gave me free will. God gave you free will. If I cannot impose my will upon you without your consent, and you cannot impose your will upon me without my consent. If you try to do this, if you try to impose your will upon me without my consent, you will manifest conflict, and that conflict will create destruction. It may take time, but it will happen. It will boil up, and it will destroy whatever it is you're attempting to do. The only reason you would do this would be because you were out of balance in the first place. You were corrupted. Perhaps you tried to consume more energy than was allotted to you, therefore you became corrupted. A hole in your heart was created, and you became greedy and insecure and full of fear, and you lost your grace. This is what happens when we go against the law. So being governed and living a lawful life is not the same thing. I'm trying to I don't want people to think that I'm saying, no government. No, I just want a lawful government. In this day and age, it's not practical to say, no government, because if you were to get rid of your government, some other country would just come in and take you over. I'm talking about simply returning to the law, returning to a balanced system, a system that respects our God-given rights. That's what they've stepped away from. They are no longer respecting your unalienable rights. They're pushing their beliefs. Ultimately, what are statutes and acts? What are rules? What is being sovereign? Sovereignty means ruler. You are your own ruler. It does not mean you are above the law. Everybody is bound to the law, because the law is the design of this world. You can't escape it. But when you get a group of people who go against the law, who do not recognize or respect the law anymore, which is what we have, you have massive amounts of conflict that is the inequity that is manifested, which equates to a conflict, which eventually equates to destruction. But what we're supposed to, if you do your research, you realize that we have the right, the sovereignty, to be our own rulers. We are supposed to be our own rulers. They are not respecting your right to invoke your sovereignty and rule yourself. They're imposing their rules, which ultimately are belief systems. That is their belief. They're imposing their belief upon you, and if you don't obey their orders, their commands, they punish you. This is a form of slavery, and they do not have this right by law. So eventually their house will fall. They have tried to remove the foundation. They're trying to take away the foundation of law, build their house away from it. They're trying to remove the foundation, so their house is going to fall. This is, you look through history. Any government, any society that attempts to do this, that builds on inequity, which all of them do because they all fall into the tribal, hierarchical modes of the flesh, always fall because they go against the law. We must stay in tune with the law if we do not want our houses to fall. So I'm not for no government. I'm just for lawful government, which would create a very limited government, but it would still be there. The infrastructure would still be there in a very limited sense. But ultimately, before we can build anything, we have to fix the people. Because what is everything built on? It is built on the people. It is all manifested through us. And what we have is a nation, a world of broken people. So, you know, I hope that I'll try to clear this up even more, but that's what I'm not talking about no government, okay? Just talking about lawful government. A lawful government that respects my rights, my God-given rights, and my sovereignty. That's it.